Hello everybody, I'm KC and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the Ducktales episode, Astro Boyd. Every once in a while, there's an episode that comes along that has everything you not only already love about the show, but have been dying to see portrayed in it all in one delightful package. And that is exactly what Astro Boyd is for me. If you've been following my reviews of Ducktales, or if you follow me on Tumblr, you might have already suspected this by seeing some elements that I am constantly praising present here, but as much as I was looking forward to this episode, I don't think I was prepared to enjoy it as much as I did. Yep, strap yourselves in, it's gonna be one of those videos.
So many feels.
When Huey and Boyd become friends, he wants to help the little robot with some recent glitches he's been having. After discovering that Gyro had a hand in creating Boyd, the three of them, plus Fenton, head off to the lab where Boyd was invented to confront the past and uncover dark secrets. As much as I would love to dive right into all the deeper character stuff here, there are other great elements of this episode that deserve a proper look, so let's start with the things introduced. Like the amazing location of Tokyo. Maybe I've just watched too many vlogs of millennials on their trips to Japan, but I really think the creative team blended the aspects of what make Tokyo so unique and the world of Ducktales so delightful into a very memorable location. They really take the time to explore it, even in a story that only takes place over a few hours, and the usual Ducktales story points get an extra bit of creativity thanks to the location. Like navigating the narrow back streets during a great chase scene and many anime-inspired animation techniques in the fight sequences. It's very well executed and really ups the replayability of this one for me. I also liked a bunch of the new characters introduced here. Being an Adventure of the Week style show, DuckTales has a fair amount of eccentric one-off characters, and much like growing up with something like Pokemon, there are some that stand out more than others, and everyone has their favorites. And the likes of Dr. Akita and Inspector Tezuka are definitely some of mine. And I think that just comes down to every aspect of the characters being memorable. I love their designs, their personalities are big and funny, but not over the top, and the voice acting is excellent. I know it's very likely we'll never see this group again, since given how this episode ends, it's pretty clear they're not welcome back, but I would not object to future appearances. Of course, the most important major character in this episode is Boyd, but one more detour real quick to talk about my boy Fenton. This is by no means his episode, he is very much a supporting player here, but they take advantage of every second of his screen time, which was, to me, vastly entertaining. As weird as this may sound, coming from me, it's kind of nice to have Fenton be a major part of an episode that's not about him. Fenton's always been a pretty optimistic guy, but usually his episodes involve him being somewhat downtrodden so he can overcome an obstacle. But here, he is so overzealous during all of this, and I am here for it. I just love how enthusiastic he is about literally everything. Learning more about Gyro's origins as a scientist, and of course just being Gizmo Duck. From his boisterous excitement to the highly elaborate suit-up sequences, it's so high energy and fun, and I love every second of it. Except for the realization that Fenton is still apparently an intern. I, and a lot of other people, thought the promotion to Gizmo Duck would mean being promoted to a paid lab worker, but okay. Plus we get some cool new tidbits about how the Gizmo suit works. Fenton can apparently get alerts for nearby crimes, and this method of only assembling part of the suit.
For science. Blah.
I feel like that's way funnier than it has any right to be. Now, I'm sure you're all eager for me to dive right into the involvement of the actual scientists here, but before we do, I think we need to discuss Huey's role in this episode and his connection with the definitely real boy, Boyd. Which brings to light something that I hadn't really thought of until now, that the triplets don't really have any friends. At least not their own age. They seem to either be content with hanging out with each other, or their family, or people who work for their family. Any friends they have around their own age, they kind of inherited from Webby. So Huey befriending Boyd is new territory for the show. Well, I don't want to say that it's easy to believe that Huey would have the toughest time making friends. I think they all have some antisocial tendencies. I like how the story takes the time to show just how much trouble Huey has getting along with other kids. Even his own brothers, who he spends most of his time with. Which is part of what makes his budding friendship with Boyd so special. Not only is Boyd just as enthusiastic and passionate about a lot of things things Huey is interested in, but Huey is the only character for most of the episode who understands Boyd, who finds him fun and interesting and is supportive of Boyd as they set out on this journey that goes to the root of his creation, trying to work through Boyd's confusing memories while everyone around him is telling him what he should be. The biggest issue of sorting all this out is that Boyd has been reprogrammed over and over again to suit others' purposes, because he's a robot, something to serve others' interests, not discover his own. Gyro keeps telling him what he is based on bad past experience, Dr. Akita completely overrides Boyd to carry out destruction and revenge, even Fenton is somewhat misguided in this area, pushing Boyd to take up crime fighting because of his powers, even though he doesn't want to hurt anyone. Yes, my precious feathered cinnamon roll of a fave can have an ignorant fault. Welcome to having dimensional characters, folks. The only person who really lets Boyd just be himself and takes the time to get to know him is Huey, who is constantly defending Boyd from the short-sighted views around him. To the point that I started to wonder if this episode was trying to tackle neurodivergence in kids, and I'm not alone here. There was a lot of talk about this after the episode aired. I don't know if that was intentional, but I think you could easily at least interpret that from the text.
Look at him. He's a kid like me, just wired a little differently.
The biggest conflict in the episode is Huey trying to get the adults around him to understand Boyd, let him live as he wants and figure out who he could be, rather than assume the worst about him or shape him into something he's not. Which is where we come to the one who has the most growth and discovers the most about himself as they uncover the truth about Boyd, Gyro Gearloose. Which is so weird to say, but I am immensely relieved that I finally get to say it. Gyro's kind of a unique case in the Ducktales reboot. As part of the supporting cast, Gyro has been in a fair amount of episodes, has been an essential part of these episodes, and has had a lot of great moments, but unlike most of the supporting cast, Gyro hasn't really had a conflict of his own. A dedicated episode, or even just a subplot to challenge Gyro and maybe even force him to change a bit. The closest is maybe his debut in The Great Dime Chase, and that's really pushing it. By the time season 3 came around, many viewers, including me, were kind of starved for Gyro to get a focused episode or anything resembling character development. So as soon as you see Gyro's reaction to seeing Boyd in his lab, it becomes clear that this might finally be the time. And you know what that means.
Backstory time!
During their trip to Tokyo and working to uncover Boyd's buried memories, we see a side of Gyro we never have before. Well, this version of Gyro anyway, since in his younger days he resembled his more traditional design, which was a nice touch. A Gyro who was optimistic and even compassionate, especially with Boyd. We only see Gyro's time as Akita's intern for a few seconds, but comparing that past to the image of Gyro we've had up to this point in the series is really kind of devastating and incredibly eye-opening. Seeing Gyro disgusted at his past self, his trust and ambition being responsible for what he felt was, at the time, a failed experiment that still haunts him to this day in every project. He's so determined to make sure his projects don't turn evil because, as far as he knew, his very first major creation went rogue. He's dismissive and condescending to Fenton because he sees himself in Fenton, someone ambitious and, in Gyro's eyes, naive. This explains everything. All this time, Gyro's closed himself off because being open and trusting backfired on him tremendously, and he places all the burden on what happened with Boyd on himself. And it's kind of sad to watch Gyro's attitude get even more detached throughout the events here. Jim Rash delivering some truly raw moments that make you feel all the betrayal that Gyro does as he's reminded of his greatest failure.
I understand 2BO all too well. Don't get too close to it.
But as the story goes on, the truth about those events come to light. Boyd didn't act of his own free will, and Gyro wasn't betrayed by him, but his mentor, Akita. That's important because while Gyro was still betrayed by his own naivety, it wasn't through getting attached and believing in Boyd like he thought. Akita denied Boyd the chance to be his own person, the person Gyro was helping him become, by guiding the first desire Boyd had to be a real boy and help him realize the potential he wanted to reach. Gyro put the burden that Boyd turned evil on himself, seeking to rectify that through his entire career, all because of the actions of someone who lied to him, tainted his work, and never had any faith in his abilities or skill to begin with. Which is why I really appreciate how much this episode highlights Lil Bulb, one of Gyro's few pure success stories while having a life of its own, protecting Gyro while being more than willing to call him out as much as it can for something that can't talk. talk. During the climax, when the truth comes to light, Gyro stands up to Akita for the first time and confronts him face to face. And while this is amazing and very important for Gyro, there's also some very funny contrast between this less than impressive confrontation between the two scientists with the awesome, gorgeously animated anime-style fight between Gizmo Duck and Boyd going on in the background. I love the moment they both lose their glasses. That was so good. Ultimately, this whole experience gives Gyro the character development he's desperately needed. All this time, Gyro has been trying to prove he's better than his greatest failure, but underneath all that, I feel like there's this understanding that his inventions are more than just mindless automatons. And in that moment, where he faces down Boyd to protect Fenton, finally accepts Boyd for what he is, what he helped him become, is when he embraces that side of himself rather than try to be smarter than it. That this part of himself isn't a weakness, but a strength. Something that can make his creation something really special. Something that creates opportunity rather than destroys it. To the point that he finally decides to give Fenton his own opportunity by promoting him. Again, I thought this happened when he became Gizmo Duck, but still, it's very sweet. We've seen that Fenton really respects Gyro, even if Gyro has never returned the favor and berates him at every turn. So the fact that he's willing to give this validation and encouragement to him that his own mentor never did is Gyro truly rebelling against his unfortunate origins. It's certainly progress. Gyro still has a ways to go. Despite the revelations here, the language at the end of the episode implies that while he sees the benefits of this mindset, he's not completely comfortable with it. But this is most certainly a step, no, a leap in the right direction. Overall, Astro Boyd feels like it was tailor-made specifically for me to love and gush about how good it is. Because it's so good! The story is compelling, the animation and art direction is gorgeous, every character gets a chance to shine in very memorable ways, and it feels like everything about it is new and different. Every major plot in this episode is something we haven't gotten to tackle on the show before. Huey expanding his social circle, Boyd developing into a fully fleshed out character, Fenton's confidence and skill as Gizmo Duck, and of course, Gyro's story. This whole journey gave dimension to Gyro as a character that I feel many people have been craving since day one. His backstory, his inner demons, and him overcoming his own self-doubts and even for a moment reclaiming a part of himself that had been lost for so long. It's great stuff. And this hug, for me, is one of the most emotionally powerful and satisfying moments in the entire series. Don't at me. It's an adventure that made me feel everything. Though it probably helps that it featured most of my favorite characters, and characters that will quickly become favorites. Seriously, I was drowning in all of the fluffy Gyro dad to Boyd fan art that rapidly started popping up after this aired. It was the best. It's one of those episodes that really fills a void in the show. Some I knew were there, and some I didn't notice. It's by far my favorite episode of season 3 right now, and while I know we've got some exciting stuff coming this season, it's going to take something remarkable to top this one for me. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.